This video explains the application layout and key concepts of Thermo-Calc software. This is how the software looks the first time you start the program. The application is divided into several panels, but most of your interaction will take place in 3 of them. The first is the project pane, where you create and change relations between activities. The center pane is where activities are configured. For example, this is where you select elements and set temperature, pressure, compositions, diagram axes, and so on. The rightmost pane is where results are shown in the form of tables and plots. Let's start in the first pane and focus for a while on the concept of activities. In Thermo-Calc, you are always working with a project, which is represented by the project node. Below that, you will create a sequence or map of activities. There are different types of activities, and each activity is represented by a folder or node. For example, there's one activity for defining your alloy system, one for setting up calculations, and one for plotting results. I will manually create one of each activity and explain what I'm doing. There are a variety of ways to create activities, and in this video, I'll show you 2. For this example, I'll set up a calculation of the iron-carbon phase diagram and talk you through the whole procedure. We will begin by right-clicking on the My Project Activity node. When you right-click on any of the nodes in the project pane, a context-sensitive menu appears that shows what can be performed in that activity. To start a new project, right-click on the My Project Activity node and select Create New Activity, then System Definer. A new node appears in the project pane that is used for setting up the system. You can also see that the center pane was replaced with a periodic table. This is the configuration for System Definer. It's where you select your database and elements, open a material file, and select or deselect phases. We'll use the database TCFE7 and the elements iron and carbon. For this example, we'll use the default values for everything else, so that's all we have to do in the System Definer. Now we want to add another activity, so I'll go back to the project panel. This time I right-click on the System Definer node, highlight Create New Successor, and choose Equilibrium Calculator. An Equilibrium Calculator node appears in the project pane, and the configuration window changes again. Here we define which calculation type we want to perform, so we select Phase Diagram. This will cause the axis definitions to appear. If you have an older version of Thermo-Calc, the axes are already present, but you may need to check the boxes to their left to enable them. Once again, we'll accept the default values that the program gives us. Make sure your values match mine before moving on. Finally, we'll want to plot our results once they're calculated, so we need to create one more node. You could go back to the project pane and right-click on the Equilibrium Calculator node, but I'll show you a different way. If you go to the bottom of the configuration window, you will see a button called Create New Successor. When you click on this button, a list of available activities comes up. We want to plot our results, so we select Plot Renderer. Just as before, the new activity appears in the project pane. The configuration window has also changed again. Here you can configure the plot by changing things such as the axis variables, axis type, and scaling. We're going to use the default variables, so we won't change anything. You may have noticed that the plot was also assigned a tab in the results pane. The table is currently empty, but the results will appear once the calculations are complete. Now we have configured all the activities, so the next step is to perform them. Performing an activity means that the activity operates on the configuration and produces a result. The program starts with the top node in a project, completes the configuration, then sends the information to the next node, which in turn uses it for its calculation, and so on. Now let's perform the plot. To do this, you can either click Perform at the bottom of the screen, or you can go back up to the project pane and right-click the Plot node. Notice that here you have the option to either perform now or perform later, which allows you to perform the calculation at a later time. This is helpful if, for example, you have a time-consuming calculation that you want to run overnight. We'll choose Perform Now, so I'll cancel the timer and click Perform at the bottom of the screen. When you perform an activity node, all the nodes above it in the sequence will also be performed. You may notice that something happens in a window we haven't looked at yet, the scheduler. This area shows projects that are being performed, as well as projects that are scheduled to be performed in the future. You can also view the events log, where you can find information about the ongoing calculations, warnings, and error messages. The events log can be especially useful if a calculation is not working as you assume it should. Once the calculations are done, the plot will appear in the Results tab. Here you can zoom in and out, configure the plot to your liking, and export the images in various formats. There are two useful features I want to show you. The first is the Help button at the bottom center of the program. If you click this button, it will take you to a Thermo-Calc help page that corresponds to whatever you're currently doing in the program. For instance, if you highlight the Equilibrium Calculator node, then hit the Help button, you'll be taken to the help page on Equilibrium Calculator. Thermo-Calc also allows you to save notes with your projects. Simply click the button at the bottom center of the screen with the white piece of paper, and a box will appear where you can record information. I'll make a quick note about the project and then click OK. Notice that the white paper icon now has lines on it to show you that you made a note. Your notes will save with the project they were created in, so they'll be available every time you open this particular project. Finally, you can save projects to come back and work on them later or share them with others. You can either click the Save icon or use the File menu to select Save Project or Save Project As. The software will automatically prompt you to save your projects when you exit the program, so you won't risk losing any work. To learn more about Thermo-Calc software, visit the video library on our website at www.thermocalc.com.